What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Running Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. And tonight, we will be previewing the 49ers Week 15 matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals. Forgive my voice if I sound a little nasally. I think I've come down with something, so bear with me here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. If you're tuning in on X, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring you. We just can't see them. So youtube.com/49ers Hive. Now that I got that spiel out of the way, Matt, how you doing tonight?
Oh, baby's going through her 4-month sleep regression. I am exhausted, man. She's waking up at weird hours, but, love it. It's, the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I've talked about it, ad nauseum, but just a little bit of a lack of sleep. But that's okay because we're going to wake up in the morning and we're going to have 49ers football tomorrow. It should be one that they can take care of. They just have to avoid falling into the trap of a 3-10 Cardinals team.
Yeah, this game is scary in the sense that it's right after a run of Seattle, Philly, Seattle, and right before a Monday night Christmas Day game versus the Baltimore Ravens. So it could easily be an overlooked game, but I'm hoping that's not the case. By the way, I'm seeing comments from X here. Like, I've never seen comments from X since they left Periscope. So maybe Elon fixed this. Maybe this is back. So that's very cool. That's very cool. If so, still go over to youtube.com/49ers Hive and join for there. Hit like, hit subscribe while you're there. We're going to be previewing this game. We got a great show planned for you guys this evening. I think the 49ers, if my math's correct, Matt, this could be a hat and t-shirt game for them tomorrow. They could win the NFC West with a win versus the Cardinals. So very important stuff here. And it would be nice to have this wrapped up this week. And they could move on, focus on playoff seeding and whatnot in the next couple of weeks. Biggest difference from their first matchup versus the Cardinals in this one, Kyler Murray. How much does Kyler Murray concern you? He's a mobile quarterback, very shifty. How does that concern you going up against this Niners defense?
Yeah, I don't think that it's nothing, but this is not a full-strength Kyler Murray. He's only completing about 60% of his passes on the season, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He has yet to round into form coming off of that massive knee injury that he suffered last year. I think it's going to take him a while. Usually with these ACLs, it does. People feel like they're physically back, but the mentality is not there. And I feel like, trying to recover from that injury going against this defense, you got to get on your bicycle and you got to ride. This defensive line is going to be going after him hardcore for the entire game. And they just don't have a ton of weapons there, right? DeAndre Hopkins is not walking in through that door. A lot of these players aren't walking through that door. Zach Ertz is gone. You have James Conner. You have, I believe, Hollywood Brown still. But the bulk of the team, they're 3-10 for a reason. And the 49ers on the road typically tend to be focused. I would expect them to come out, get out to an early lead, get out fast, bring this one home early, and then get ready for that Christmas showdown. But they have to come out quick, put them away early. We talk about making easy look easy. They have to beat down on this Arizona Cardinals team. They're right for the picking, but at the same time, sometimes the 49ers have been victim of overlooking their opponent.
Yeah, agreed. And that's what kind of worries me about tomorrow. I think that the 49ers could get the job done. They're favored by 12 points. Like, that's a hell of a line for them to cover. I believe they were favored by 10 against Seattle last week, which they ended up covering after all. But it's a lot. It's a lot of points.
Yeah. And by the way, that's 12 on the road versus 10 at home.
True.
So that's an even bigger thing. That's, Vegas likes to give the home team 3 points just as a default. So they're essentially saying that the 49ers should be a 2-touchdown favorite. And that to me is indicative of where the teams are. But again, the 49ers can't play with their food. They got to get it done early.
Yeah. And the biggest story going into this game, in my opinion, is the injury report. The 49ers have a good amount of starters and talent on this injury report, including 2 that are out. Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, both defensive tackles. I guess they have Armstead listed as a DE, but he lines up primarily in the inside. They are out. Ross Dwelly's out. And then Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw. I know Steve Wilkes said earlier in the week Greenlaw will play. He hasn't practiced all week. Charvarius Ward is questionable with that groin injury. It is a little more promising, though, because John Lynch said on KBR earlier in the week that if he needed to go back in last week, he could have. They just decided to hold him out since Deommodore Lenoir was doing such a good job. So hopefully we see Greenlaw and Ward, but it also is a case of getting healthy going into the playoff push. Like, you don't want guys to push it going into this game, which isn't as meaningful, and then re-injuring themselves or getting injured and altogether, and then having to miss a longer stretch. So just get healthy, stay healthy, and get out of this game with the win. Like I said, the line's 12 points, over under is 48 according to my bookie. So some money to be made there. I think last time the 49ers played the Cardinals at home, Brock Purdy had that like amazing efficiency game. I think he only missed 2 throws the entire game. I want to say he was like 19 for 21 or something like that. What do you think? How do you think Brock Purdy will fare tomorrow? Is there anything about the Cardinals defense that worries you?
I mean, they're not too scary to me. If they come out and be efficient right off the bat. What does worry me is that the 49ers offense in the last 2 weeks has come out very flat in the first quarter. And that's put them behind a little bit in terms of, both the score and in terms of trying to press and get into your offense. And before you know it, you're sitting there looking at the clock and, there's only, 2 minutes left in the first half and you've only got 7 to 10 points to show for it because you completely, pissed away the first quarter. Now, last week against Seattle, they did have the big Christian McCaffrey run and they were able to score in 2 plays. But after that, it was a lot of nothingness until the second quarter. They have to come out quick and sustain that throughout the game. Otherwise, they're going to be in for a long day because you talk about the defensive injuries. Those aren't nothing. Those are a lot of big players out. Javon Hargrave and, Eric Armstead. That's a lot of the 49ers run defense. And if you're looking at trying to limit someone like James Conner, having a soft inside is not going to work. So the 49ers are going to have to play as good a defense as they can, and they're really going to need the offense to kind of carry them through the day. I look at this as maybe they give up a little bit more points than they normally would just by virtue of how many players are either going to be out or going to be at least a little bit limited in what they're looking to do because of pre-existing injury.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think a lot of people kind of underestimate how much these starters being out could affect the team. I very strongly remember the Cleveland game, Minnesota game, and Cincinnati game, where Greenlaw was hurt, Debo was hurt, Trent was hurt, and there were so many fans overconfidently just saying, oh, we'll just keep him out. We can handle Cleveland without Trent. We can handle, Minnesota without Trent and Debo. It's like these players are a big part of what the 49ers are trying to do. And maybe, if you can live without one, yes, but when there's multiple at key positions, you could definitely see it pile up. Luckily, the defensive line, hopefully, is they have the most depth of their defensive line than any other position. I have some quotes here I want to read for you, Matt, from the coaches, the players. Jonathan Gannon, new Arizona Cardinals head coach, said, when you watch the tape, all 3 phases jump out to you. They've got good players, they're well coached, and they win games. So that's what everybody in the NFL is trying to do. Just kind of cracks me up when every time I see Jonathan Gannon, I just picture him in his little the Mercedes G-Wagon, pull it up to the championship game last year. Do you remember that clip? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. The one clip that I know Jonathan Gannon for is the how many of you rode school buses?
Oh god, yeah. No, so the championship game, he's pulling up, and a fan sees him on the street, and he's recording him. And he goes, "Yo, let's go!" And he turns around and he goes, "Let's fucking gut these fuckers." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, sure." And I thought this dude was going to be like a beast, I don't know. He seems to be like a good coach, but boy, does he have some very awkward and cringy moments out there. I also remember him meeting, I don't remember which receiver it was, hey, shoo, 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 shoo. You're going to be running verticals, slants, explosives. Like, it's just so cringy. It's so cringy. Not to judge a book by its cover because he appears to be a solid coach. They appear to like playing for him, but definitely cringy.
Then again, they are 3-10, right?
Yeah, they are 3-10.
So I don't know, man. He comes from that Eagles system, and talk about, cringe and explosions. I feel like the Eagles are imploding in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
That's been an interesting thing the last couple of weeks. But yeah, for me, Jonathan Gannon, he's not going to come out and say anything that's going to give the 49ers, the clearly superior team, any ammunition to just beat them down any harder than what's probably going to happen. The last thing you want going into a game against a good team is to wake a sleeping dragon, right? You don't go and you don't go poke the dragon before you're going to go, sneak past it. You kind of hope you catch them sleeping and you can sneak out a win or two against them over the course of the season. But, they played the 49ers tough last time before the game got out of hand a little bit later. And it took a very monumental, like you said, efficient effort from Brock Purdy. It was 31-13, I believe, that game finally finished. But was that the final score? I'm not sure.
Let me see.
It was something like that.
35-16.
35-16. So closer than it had any right to be with Joshua Dobbs as the quarterback at that time for them before he was traded to Minnesota. Now you have Kyler Murray. So you got a team that kind of played you tough. It's a division opponent. You're on the road and Kyler Murray is back. You're not trying to poke that bear before you go up against the 49ers. Right. You just want to kind of sneak out a home win if you can. I'm not surprised by his statements. Yeah. And it's very muted, like what you said. He's known for his weird, wacky, out there kind of things. But this is pretty media trained, coach speak, as it were. Yeah.
I agree. By the way, I just tested it on X with my personal account, and you can comment. We can get comments from X style, so this is awesome. If you're watching on X, drop a comment. Let us know what you think. This is the first time we've been able to do it since they left Periscope. So that's cool. It's nice to know. So I just want to give a shout out to, two shout outs, I guess. Happy birthday, Kyle Shanahan. His birthday was this past Thursday. Man is aging like a president. So I'm hoping the 49ers could get him a ring this year. But also shout out to Brandon Ayuk. This past game, he went over 1,000 yards for the second consecutive year. The first 49ers receiver to do that since Anquan Bolden. And I believe he's like only one of 4 to have consecutive 1,000-yard years. So he's been very consistent for the 49ers, and it's extremely encouraging to see him come up. And it's funny that people use how talented he is to kind of downplay Brock Purdy's success. But this is like a completely developed talent here from the 49ers. Like nobody was talking about Brandon Ayuk being an elite receiver when he was drafted after Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs. He was like the 4th or 5th receiver taken in that class. And the 49ers, to their credit, drafted back up into the first round to draft him. But they knew what the hell they were doing. And he's just developed so nicely. I can't even begin to imagine how this is the same player from the first couple of years that was in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse, that maybe wasn't getting that many looks. And now he's like the focal point of this offense. And I can't even, the number of 15 plus yard receptions he has, I believe it leads the NFL. So it's just really, really impressive. And the chemistry he's built with Brock Purdy in a season and a half. It's awesome to see. And in my opinion, Matt, you can't let that type of receiver go, right? There's no way they can let them go.
Sure. I'm with you on that. And it seems like the one area, everybody talks about Kyle Shanahan. He's never had a franchise quarterback. He can't identify talent. He can't, whatever. We know the jokes about the 3rd round running backs. The one position outside of Dante Pettis that he has been able to draft and develop well is pass catchers. From George Kittle to Brandon Ayuk to Deebo Samuel to even someone like Juwan Jennings, who was picked in the 7th round out of Tennessee, viewed as like a fringe roster guy. And now he's an important 3rd down guy. Now you'll get your guys that slip through the cracks a little bit. Like I said, Dante Pettis, maybe a Danny Gray, but you offset a Danny Gray with somebody like Ronnie Bell, who's had some meaningful snaps for the 49ers. And you kind of go through it and say, hey, you know what? Kyle Shanahan was a college wide receiver at Texas. Maybe he knows what he's doing with that position. Brandon Ayuk, though, immensely talented. I think that the injury in his senior season at Arizona State kind of hurt him in the draft. He wasn't able to run his 40. He's faster than people gave him credit for, and he's kind of showing them what the deal was when he was, when he was tearing up the Pac-12, and now he's doing it in the NFL. And he has definitely taken this leap this season. Had a big leap last season in year 3, but year 4 has just been all aces for Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah. It's been really impressive, and to see him paired with Deebo Samuel is just like a perfect 1-2. By the way, you brought up Juwan Jennings. I saw this on X the other day. Let me see if I could pull it up. But apparently Matt Barrows of The Athletic posted it here. I have it here. The
Oh, yes,
49ers
the hard
have,
hat.
yes, let me change the overlay here so you guys can see what we're looking at. Okay. Matt Barrows posted this is the 49ers knocked out hat. It gets signed whenever a wide receiver delivers a clear pancake block in a game. You'll notice that one guy's name is on there a lot. You see, it's not the bunch of Juwan Jennings. Like, that's all I see on here. I can't even make out who else it is. So Juwan Jennings is blocking some people off
Now
their
there's
hats.
the Ronnie Bell number 10 on there. I see it.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Hey, maybe that was Jimmy. I'm just kidding. That was this year. But yeah, that's just really cool to see. Juwan Jennings has blossomed into a really good, number 3 receiver. But on the flip side, we talked about not being able to let Brandon Ayuk walk out the building. The 49ers might not have the ability to stop Juwan Jennings from leaving. Like, are we going to see something like we saw with Kendrick Bourne a couple of years where a really struggling team is willing to give him, $40 million over the course of a couple of years? How do you think this plays out?
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I mean, they kind of look like they've come up the same way. Everybody remembers the big Juwan Jennings game against the Rams where he had 2 touchdowns. And then, he had the first down play earlier this season. There's been a couple of Juwan Jennings plays where he seemed to be, really important in key areas. And that was much the same as what Kendrick Bourne was, when the top 2 guys were covered and you need the chains to be moved, who do you go to? And Juwan Jennings has filled that role. I think that's part of what they're doing with Ronnie Bell is potentially grooming him for that Juwan Jennings number 3 spot where, the 49ers are not going to get into a bidding war for Juwan Jennings, right? They're going to offer him what they think is fair. If he can get more than that, then thank you for your service. We appreciated having you here, but, go get your money. And I kind of think that that's appropriate given all of what the 49ers have to sign. They got to get BA under contract. You're looking at Chase Young. If you want to bring him back, there's other guys that need to be re-signed. It's a lot of mouths to feed with a limited number of, items to give out. So contracts are not going to everybody. I think that Juwan Jennings could go the Kendrick Bourne route and be gone after this.
Yeah. I agree with you, unfortunately. People, he's going to go to Carolina, watch. I think we talked about this in the chat earlier, Christian and I, T. Higgins. Keep Carolina on the radar for T. Higgins. He's looking for a wide receiver 1 contract. Cincinnati's not going to be able to give that to him. Carolina's desperately looking for a wide receiver 1. They traded for, or they signed Adam Thielen. They had to let DJ Moore go. I think they're going to probably get a receiver like Juwan Jennings, like T. Higgins. So we'll see. Something that cracks me up, Matt, is a lot of people on social media. I'll see this in the comments, right, from opposing teams fans, and they're like, oh, the Niners are good, but just wait until next year. And when they lose all these players, who's like contributes a key amount that's not under contract long term? Like Fred's locked up, Debo's locked up, Purdy's still on his rookie contract, Bosa's locked up, Trent's locked up. I mean, basically it's Ayuk, and he's about to get locked up.
Yeah, and listen, they were able to re-sign Nick Bosa, and they were able to restructure contracts that allowed them to be $40 million under the cap when they were brushing right up against it near week 1. They have the ability to manipulate the cap how they see fit. I don't think that it's something that the 49ers are going to have to worry about. And let's face it, all good teams end up losing players. It's not like the 49ers have gone without losing players, right? Azeez Al-Shaair in Tennessee. Again, the previously mentioned Kendrick Bourne. There are players, I mean, I remember Delaney Walker back in the day, when they were trying to keep Vernon Davis. Good teams produce good players. Those good players are all going to get paid. The fortunate thing for the 49ers is beyond having some rollover cap for next year and the cap going up as it tends to do, is that the 49ers have their first, second, and 3 third-round picks to restock the cabinet. So I know some of those I think are projected comp picks, but still you're looking at, guys that can be replaced in a lot of ways. And like you said, the biggest guys are under contract for the most part, with the exceptions being Brandon Ayuk and potentially Chase Young if they decide to keep him. Everybody else is kind of locked up. So I don't see what the issue is with getting some of those guys back. In a lot of situations, you find out that you have players that you didn't even know were that good.
Yeah.
Case in point, Jair Brown, who's filled in, I think, almost flawlessly for Talanoa Hufanga. I don't see a huge dip there, if there's any dip at all. So now you have your third round pick from this year matching your first team All-Pro, who was a fifth or sixth round pick, by the way, when you drafted him. The 49ers draft well in certain positions. Other positions, not so much, but they get enough right that between free agency and the cap going up, plus all their draft picks, I think the team will be able to restock just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up, players you had no idea were this good. Look at Brock Purdy. Like, if two injuries don't happen, the 49ers have no idea just how good Brock Purdy is. And those injuries happened. He's in, and he was a 7th round pick, and he's playing as good as anybody in the league, at least statistically speaking. So it's really, really impressive to see how well they've been able to draft over the years. And it's no surprise why, they're losing pieces left and right. Rand Carthon, Kwesi, who went to Minnesota, like, they're losing guys to become general managers of other teams because everybody sees how good they draft, specifically in the later rounds, when for most teams it kind of turns into like a crapshoot. The 49ers have been able to find these talented players. And I probably would say it's because they haven't had earlier picks. Like, they've traded all of their first round picks the last couple of years. They've traded their second round picks to get, guys like Christian McCaffrey. So it definitely is a testament to how they've been able to draft. And I love seeing it. Matt, I want to ask you about this because this is something we've talked about earlier in the year, and it looked almost like a definite 100% no. Is Steve Wilks returning next year? Do you think the 49ers will bring him back?
I mean, I think he would have to. I think that since the bye, since players have had time to adjust to a scheme, ever since he came out of the box, I think that Steve Wilks has done a really good job. I don't think that based off of, the 49ers are number one in the NFC. I don't really think you can pick apart the job that Steve Wilks did. I know all of us were very unhappy with how it was earlier, but it looks like he and or the players have both adjusted. So they're both doing well. I think the defense is in a good spot. They're not as historically great as they have been. I think this is a little bit of a down year, although they're still at the top of the league in terms of points. The coverage a little too soft. I don't think that the pass rush is getting home enough, but it's better than it was. And I think that he's done a good job of adjusting. I don't think he's in any danger of losing his job. And I know Randy Elite Daytona saying Wilks, if not desired by another team at head coach, he returns. Wilks has had shots as a head coach. He was the coach of the Arizona Cardinals, fired after one season, and then he was the interim in Carolina, and he was also fired. So I think that his name is kind of going to be on the back burner for a little bit. Yeah. So he'll probably be back.
Yeah, I saw a clip of him being asked, I don't know by who, but at a press conference, you used to be the head coach of Arizona Cardinals. Going back there, does it bring up any emotions? And before the question was even done, no, absolutely none. Nope, it's all business. I've actually been there. I've been back there already since I've been fired. So it's no business or no emotions. But yeah, I'm looking up the 49ers rankings. Like, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th in total defense, and that's with total points allowed. They're first in points per game allowed with 15.8 points per game. They're first in rushing yards allowed, first in rushing yards per game allowed. They drop off a little bit when it comes to passing yards, but a lot of these are probably in garbage time for passing yards. I'm really impressed with the job he's done. Like, we were some of the few people, I'm not going to say the only ones, but to come on here in the beginning of the season and say, let's pump the brakes with the fire Steve Wilks talk. Even D'Amico and Robert Saleh struggled early on in their tenure as 49ers defensive coordinator, and they were, from within. Like, he's an outside hire. Let's just pump the brakes. Let's see how he adjusts. And he seems to have adjusted really, really well. The 49ers have completely bought in. I was listening to Nick Bosa on KBR earlier in the week, and he was saying how he was asked about Steve Wilks and how he feels about how he is versus on the field or in the booth. And he goes, he's great, but he doesn't really do too much with my position group. He's more so with the back end guys, with the DBs. And I thought that was interesting, but it is what we know. Like, it's his forte. He specializes in secondary, and the 49ers secondary looks so much better. like Deommodore Lenoir is playing at a really high level. Ambry Thomas came off the bench a couple weeks ago and has looked like he's playing at a really high level as well. I thought when Charvarius Ward went out with that groin injury after the first series last week for Seattle, DK was going to eat. He didn't have a single catch in the second half, Matt. Like, it's crazy to see the 49ers secondary being a strength of theirs. I mean, if you would have told us this a couple years ago when they had Josh Norman out there and, the unkillable Dante Johnson, like, it would have blown my mind that just in a couple short years, this would be one of the strengths of the defense. It absolutely is. So we'll see how things shape up. But I agree with you. I think he's almost a lock to return after the way he's rebounded in the second half. By the way, you spoke about Jair Brown playing basically as good as Talanoa Hufanga was playing. He was on Richard Sherman's podcast, and Richard Sherman told him, the best thing I can tell you is I don't notice you. It's like a long snapper or a lineman. You don't want to be named because if you're named, something went bad. Like, I don't notice you out there. You're not making mistakes. And what a hell of a pick by the 49ers and just impeccable preparedness to get it right off the bench at a moment's notice and start the rest of the game, rest of the season. It's been really impressive by Jair Brown, and he's playing at a really high level. All right.
Yeah, I agree with that, by the way, too. I think for your safeties especially, right, your corners, your safeties, your secondary guys, you don't want their name called. It's the same thing as offensive linemen, right? You don't want to hear Colt McKivitt's name called. You don't want to hear Spencer Burford unless it's something that they're doing good. So for a lineman, it'd be like a pancake block or, when Trent Williams gets out rolling, right? The reason he gets called so much is because he gets out there and pancakes people. If you get a pick off or something like that, I agree with you on that front for sure.
Yeah. Randy Elite Daytona says, what happened to Fangio in Miami? Is it the personnel, injuries, or is he stinking it up?
I always thought Vic Fangio was a little bit overrated, to be honest. It's easy to look really good when you go from, you go from a team with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman and all these guys, and you look really good. You go to the Bears and they have, at the time they had Khalil Mack and, a lot of these other guys, Peanut Tillman and some of these other guys. You have personnel there and you look good. But the scheme was never super impressive to me, to be honest. It's very vanilla, it's a very vanilla 3-4 scheme. I think that defenses have caught up, offenses have caught up. And you don't play base 3-4 a lot anymore. A lot of times you're in nickel, and I think that that's where he's lacking. If he can't pin his ears back and get after a quarterback, then there's not a lot there. And I don't know, man. There's something about Miami teams. They've just never been very robust. They're always, like Tyreek Hill, you sprint out there, but they're not going to beat you up. And I think that that's just proven true. So Nick Chubb, Jalen Ramsey, a lot of these guys, there's nobody on that defense that I can think of that just screams like heavy hitter. They seem to all be finesse guys. And I think that that's bearing it out. When somebody imposes their will on them, they kind of crumble a little bit.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. And I'm a big fan of theirs. Obviously they got Mike McDaniel. So hopefully they can tough it up, so to say. I can't believe they lost that game last Thursday. I can't believe that they were up 27-13 with 4 minutes left and they lose. And I'm thinking, okay, there must be like multiple turnovers, pick sixes. No, they just went 3 and out.
No, yeah. And Will Levis just carved them up at the end.
Yeah. It was insane. It was really insane. But hey, let's go. By the way, Big Papa.
By the way, I'm gonna pat myself on the back because Will Levis looks really good.
You did, yeah. That was your favorite quarterback coming into this draft class.
It was.
Big Papa says, I wonder if the Niners, when they sign coaches, ask for a 2-year commitment, i.e. D'Amico. D'Amico was interviewing places after his first year. He just ultimately ended up turning him down.
Yeah, I would say no, because especially in terms of like if Steve Wilkes gets a job and he's promoted to like head coach, that's another 3rd-round pick in the 49ers pocket.
True.
I think that they'll let that go. They've gone through a lot of defensive coordinators. And again, this is why I think that Vic Fangio is just a little bit overblown in terms of what he's actually accomplished, because the 49ers have great defensive personnel. It's really hard to screw that up, which is why we were down on Wilkes at the beginning of the season, particularly during that 3-game losing streak, because it looked like he was screwing it up. The pass rush wasn't getting home. He specializes in secondary. They looked soft in coverage. They still are kind of soft. I think the 49ers were 14th in passing yards. But I think that they wouldn't bat an eye if Steve Wilkes got a job somewhere else. And I think you can sign coaches. I don't know if you can put language in there that they can't leave. I don't think the NFL allows for that. Now, the 49ers can deny him like a lateral move.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that another team wanted to hire him as defensive coordinator. The 49ers can be like, no, we're not going to allow you to interview for that job. But in terms of a promotion, I don't think the 49ers have any leverage to stop him. And I don't think they'd want to be honest.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. All right. I don't know if you want it. We don't have to address it, but the whole Cam Newton situation going on in the past week.
Jay Smooth says we only get the 3rd round pick if he stays for 2 years more. I don't know that that's true. I think it's the minority hire rule.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think they get it if any coach is hired away as a head coach from a positional coach.
It's supposed to, yeah. It's supposed to, entice people to give minorities more of a shot. Anyway, we can get into the Cam news or comments.
Okay, let me see if I can pull up the video. By the way, why the hell doesn't Jordan Mason get more touches, Matt? Do you know? Is there any? Does Kyle just love Christian McCaffrey that much?
Pretty much.
Huh.
Yeah, pretty much.
He says, I heard that from John Chapman. Maybe that's the case. I've never heard that.
I mean, I've heard a lot of things from a lot of people, but until I see it in writing with the NFL ledger, then it's just speculation.
Yeah. So I'm not going to play the video, but basically Cam Newton put out this video talking about the difference between game changers and game managers. And the people that he put as a game changer is people like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. I forget who else he put in there, but on the same breath, he put game managers Tua, Brock, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott. It got a lot of steam. And a lot of people were coming out Cam like individually, which I thought was weird. Like you could always attack the take, not the person. But he walked back his original comments almost immediately. Randy Daytona says it was just weird. It really was just weird, especially coming from. I mean, 2 of the guys he mentioned are literally 1 and 2 in MVP odds this year, Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy, depending on which week it is and which sports book you're looking at. Why do you think the narrative around Brock Purdy specifically, Matt, since we are a 49ers podcast, is so much different than how he actually plays? Is it just because fans don't watch any opposing teams' games and they just go off of what they see online?
Yeah, I think that plays a big role in it. It's the highlight brigade, right? Like some people will try to prove their point just by looking at stats. Other guys will try to prove their point just looking at highlights. I think that this falls somewhere into both. Everybody knows about the yak yards, right, that the 49ers receivers get. But it's, the Kurt Warner measured style is like, yeah, but the quarterback has to put them in position to get that, and I do think that, again, Brock Purdy being successful upsets the apple cart of evaluations, right? Of course, somebody like Cam Newton, a guy who has like a 1.3 to 1 interception ratio and a guy that threw less than 50% or 60% completion percentage on his passes, of course, that guy's going to consider himself a game changer because he was a running quarterback. He was like a freak of nature or whatever the case may be. But to me, I don't think that he was ever a game changer, to be honest. And so, that's my opinion. And other people would say that Cam Newton was absolutely a game changer. It's the beauty of this that everybody's allowed to have their own opinion. I think his 10-minute explanation video, while it goes into the weeds a little bit, does a much better job of kind of articulating where he's coming from. And I don't necessarily agree with him in any really. I don't agree with him at all because he classified Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees as game managers rather than game changers. And I think that that's just to me, that's a poor take. That's a piss poor take. But you could look at it and, you could see from his point of view that it's not something that he's just saying off the cuff like some of the mainstream media guys do. Most famously, Stephen A. Smith saying that a player was going to make an impact for the Chargers who had been retired. And another guy was going to make impact and he wasn't even on the team anymore, right? It's not that egregious. I just think that there's a certain level of elitism that people who have been considered game changers or considered special or a freak of nature in some way, shape, or form, that they're very protective over that status. And to see somebody who's 6 foot nothing, 200 and nothing, with a average arm and dresses like an American Eagle, Abercrombie and Fitch like college kid or whatever. I don't think that Cam is prepared for what that would entail to say that he's a game changer. He's being protective over that status. It's an elite status. And I think, honestly, in this instance that Cam is just kind of gatekeeping.
That's exactly how I felt. And I think the fact that, once he got a little bit of heat, he immediately kind of walked it back. What cracked me up the most about it is he goes, to the media and journalists who attacked me, I have proven that I can do your job. You have not proven that you could have done my job. And I'm like, do you think sitting around and giving your opinions into a camera is the job of a journalist? Like, I'm sorry. I don't think that you've maybe done a podcaster's job, Cam, but you definitely haven't done a journalist's job. But then again, maybe that's the state of journalism today. I don't know. Just spewing opinions.
Yeah, that's a hard one, right? Because it's not like we're the biggest podcast in the world or whatever, but we've been doing it. I think that he gets engagement because of who he was in the NFL, but at the same time, the dude is still in his like early to mid 30s and doesn't have a job. So, what kind of game changer were you? I think he had 2 great seasons: his rookie season, his MVP season, and beyond that, he's been very mediocre. Yeah. And it's funny that Michael Vick talked about this, and everybody else talked about this, that when that athleticism fades, if you don't work on the throwing of the ball, then you kind of get left behind. And I think that he's focused too much on the physical ability, right? Because the people that he mentions outside of Joe Burrow, which I thought like one of these things is not like the other one, he mentions Josh Allen, and he mentions Patrick Mahomes, and he mentions, people of that ilk, Aaron Rodgers, people that just have like this ungodly physical talent, Lamar Jackson. Right. And I think that much like Steven Ruiz with his, rankings or whatever, you fall in love with the tangibles, but the intangibles are just as important. The ability for quarterback to read a defense, the ability for the quarterback to put the ball exactly where it needs to go, the ability of the quarterback to dissect the defense. I know Benjamin Solak broke down Brock Purdy's, game or whatever, and he did everything that he could to denigrate Brock Purdy, particularly on that deep throw to Debo, being like, yeah, cool, like, but that's whatever. And it's like, well, no, the 49ers had run that play multiple times in that game, and the read was up top on the dig. And Brock Purdy was able to identify Adams being flat-footed and threw to a different read because he knew that he could get it there. If that's not the quarterback, like, what more do you want the quarterback to do? Yeah. The ball was perfectly on the money. He identified it early. Debo even said, "Yeah, I didn't run hard because that ball never goes to me." And then it goes to him, and it's a touchdown pass. So I think people are too in love with the physical talent, and they're ignoring what their eyes are telling them on the screen, because it's too easy to say, well, he's got all this help and he's not this big dude and he doesn't have this arm. And it's so easy to just push that aside. The 49ers would be good with any quarterback. First of all, we know that's not true. I think that Kyle Shanahan maximized Jimmy Garoppolo, but even then the 49ers, again, during that Super Bowl run, didn't let Jimmy Garoppolo throw the ball. No. Right? There was a clip that came out with Charvarius Ward, with Eric Armstead talking about, the plan was to let Jimmy throw the ball, when he was with the Chiefs. And I think that bears itself out. I don't think a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, let's let Brock Purdy beat us at this point. Yeah. There is something to say, like, let's not let Christian McCaffrey like carve us up. But at the same time, they're not stopping Brandon Ayuk. They're not stopping George Kittle. They're not stopping Deebo Samuel. Yep. So I don't know. I think at some point that Cam Newton is just too in love, like many of these people are, with the physical, tangible aspects of it, and just ignoring the other things.
Yeah, it really is unfortunate, because you as a player in the NFL, you understand like how difficult it is and how just to even get to the NFL, but then to play at like a really high level. So the fact that they're then tearing down other people who are playing at a high level and trying to explain it away as they're just really talented, playing with really talented players, or they have a really talented coach. I saw Computer Cowboy, I think it's like Ben Baldwin, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, said on X. So if the coaching is so good that's why Brock Purdy's playing well, then either Kyle Shanahan is coach of the year or Brock Purdy is MVP. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, if he's that good that he's able to take a 7th-round pick in his first full year starter and have him play at an MVP level, then there's no way he's not coach of the year. And if he's not because of that, then the player is the MVP. By the way, there was a comment in here that said, in the year of how many backup quarterbacks, Cam's on his couch. Like, if he was that good, I don't want to say that good, but, like, if he had progressed his game and evolved, like, definitely somebody would be calling for him. I know he said prior that, well, it's because teams can't sign me and not cause a controversy with their starter, even if he is injured. I don't think that's really the case. We got a super chat here from 49ers Throwback. Thank you very much. Yep. Appreciate your shows. Keep up the good work. Defensive player of the game, Jair Brown, and offensive, I think it's going to be Brock Purdy. Thank you very much, 49ers Throwback. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.
I want to touch on the guy that, Cowboy?
Computer Cowboy.
Yeah. So he says, oh, yeah, you can't have it both ways. It's happened in the NFL 12 times. Ironically enough, in 2015, Ron Rivera and Cam Newton, coach of the year, MVP. Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson were the last pair to do it. Brady and Belichick did it twice. Dick Vermeil and Kurt Warner did it. So it's not unheard of. So you actually can have it both ways. And then I wanted to reach out and tell, I think, Jay Smooth. I did look it up, so it does look like John Chapman is correct. The NFL rule does state that you have to have a minimum of 2 seasons with the club. But the compensation is actually 2 years of 3rd-round picks if a guy gets hired.
Wow.
So it says the employer club of minority employee who has been hired by another club as its head coach or primary football executive shall receive draft choice compensation in the form of a compensatory draft pick in the 3rd round in each of the next 2 drafts for an employee hired as a head coach or primary football executive, or for the next 3 drafts if it has 2 employees hired for both positions. So that's what we're looking at.
Damn. All right.
So thank you for that. Good call on that. And shout out to John Chapman. He got it right. I just wanted confirmation, of course.
Yeah. By the way, I hope you guys like the Christmas lights. I added them. I did it earlier. I meant to update the overlay. All right. Well, with that super chat, that should probably get us into our offensive and defensive predictions and final score predictions. We'll start with offensive. I'll go first. I'll take the easy one. Brock Purdy. He likes playing the Cardinals, clearly. He torched them last year when he did play them, torched them at the beginning of the year. I was wrong. I said he had 2 incompletions. He had 1. He was 20 for 21 last game that he played against Joshua Dobbs' Cardinals. I'm going to say he's going to have another extremely good game. I'm going to say 24 of 28, 315 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Who do you got on offense, Matt?
That's a big game. I would love that. Yeah. I'm going to go with another easy one. I think Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to have 100 yards on the ground. I think that he's going to have 75 at least in the air in the passing game. I think that he's going to take over this game. So Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to say 200 scrimmage yards, 3 touchdowns.
All right.
Big game.
Jared Bear says, my brother is Joey. Love the content, guys. Keep it up. If Joey Arredondo, if that's your brother, then shout out to Joey. He's huge help for the group. By the way, I don't know if you guys are keeping track, but Kittle is 189 yards away from having another 1,000-yard season. Debo is 261 yards away from another 1,000-yard season. The 49ers could very well have 3 1,000-yard receivers, a 1,000-yard rusher, and Purdy is 447 yards away from a 4,000-yard season. So it's very doable. Very doable. It might happen. At least Purdy. Sorry, not talking about the 3 1,000-yard receivers. That they probably have to make it work. But I think we could be seeing something really cool here. So we'll see what happens in Purdy's first year as starter. Like I said, BA already topped 1,000. He's at 1053 on the year. By the way, he's averaging 18.8 yards per catch. Just insane. Basically 20 yards every time that man catches the ball.
And they're not slants, ladies and gentlemen. They're
No,
not all slants.
no, not at all. Randy, any chance for a running back with 1,000 and 1,000? Christian is
McCaffrey
at.
did it like 3 years ago.
He did, yeah. He's only 563 yards short this year.
Only with 4 games left. Yeah. So he'd have to average 125 yards receiving per game to get 1,000. I think he's going to be short of that. But they did have a chance earlier in the year before like the last couple of Debo games where Debo's gone off. But he's going to get close to 2,000 scrimmage yards. And like, to me, that's just as good as 1,000. Plus his touchdowns are out of control. Like he scores so many touchdowns.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. Defensive player of the game. Oh, this is a tough one for me. Because I want to go, I'll go with my heart again. I'm going to go with Diamondor Lenore. And I think he's going to lock down. Who's the Cardinals wide receiver one? Is it Michael Wilson, the rookie? Is it Floyd?
No, I think it's Marquise Brown, but Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson are both questionable for this game. They're both a little bit banged up. So that's a good call. They might be able to handle those guys pretty consistently.
Yeah. I'll go with Demo, and I'm going to say he gets a pick. He should have had one last week. Bosa's offsides, which was questionable in my opinion, negated the pick. Who do you got for defensive players?
It's been a quiet couple of weeks out of Chase Young, not really affecting the stat sheet. I think he's going to have a big one here. I think this is going to be one of those games where his athleticism and working on the opposite side of Bosa, where the 49ers are going to try to flush Kyler Murray out of the pocket. I think that athleticism from Chase Young pays off. I think that Chase Young gets a couple of sacks and including a strip sack of Kyler Murray. So, 5 tackles, maybe 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble from Chase Young.
Damn. All right. I love that. Ian Sharp says Fred Warner. By the way, he's having a career year in interceptions. If you look at the top 10 leaders in interceptions right now, it's like 8 or 9 DBs and Fred Warner. So shout out to Fred Warner. He's got a nose for the ball, man. All right. We're going to do final score predictions and then end the night with a chat pack question.
Yep. Make sure you put them in the chat, by the way, everybody. If you get the final score prediction correct, you can win 49ers jersey.
All right. Final score predictions for me. I'm going to go 49ers 33, Cardinals 17. Think the Niners end up covering on this one. Like I said, they're favored by 12 points. So who do you got?
I'm going to say the 49ers take this one 45-13.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an offensive explosion. Like I said, I have Christian McCaffrey scoring 3 touchdowns. I still think Brock Purdy gets his. I think that this is just going to be a beatdown of epic proportions. And the 49ers are going to be feeling good. They're playing inside in Arizona, so the weather won't be a factor. And the offense is fully healthy. So I think that this has potential. Maybe with the a couple 49ers guys being out, of being a little bit of a track meet. I think the 49ers, though, get over the 40-point mark.
Yeah. By the way, Matt, do you remember back in August we talked about the 49ers offense? Could they carry the load for the defense if they maybe took a step back, if they had a couple off weeks? They've definitely done it.
Looks like it's been a resounding yes, right?
Yeah. It's crazy because both have been playing at a really high level ever since the bye week. Like the 49ers defense is ranked number 1 in a ton of categories, total defense, and the 49ers offense is right up there as well. Sorry about that. It's my alarm. I think if you take away that 70-point explosion from Miami, they probably have the highest scoring offense in the league. But they're still up there. They're definitely still up there. Like Matt said, drop your final score predictions in the chat. If you're watching this after it aired, you can tweet them at us. I guess post them at us now on X. Our handles are on the screen. Now we're going to end this show with a chat pack question. Guys, you can comment your answers in the chat.
Do we need to pay these bills real quick?
Oh, yes. We'll be right back after this. Just want to take a second to thank today's sponsor, MyBookie. As a bettor, you demand perfection, and MyBookie delivers. NFL, college football, and a brand new cash out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. The first 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and use the funds on another bet. Or you could let it ride for the chance of a bigger payday. Join the MyBookie family for a season filled with odds boosts, free bets, and super contests. To get started, all you got to do is super simple. Go to Mybookie.ag, right now and register for an account for free. That's right, it's free. And whenever it is you're ready to make your first deposit, just use promo code HIVE. It's right here on the screen, HIVE, to grab a welcome bonus on the house. That's our gift to you for being a part of the 49ers Hive family. That's promo code HIVE, HIVE, to claim your deposit bonus. And for a limited time, you also get a free chip to use in the MyBookie casino. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Now let's get back to the show. All right, guys, Mybookie.AG, promo code HIVE. All right, chat pack question of the night. Like I said, guys, put yours in the chat. What is one event in the future whose outcome you would really like to know now? This one is tough because I can think of one immediately, but I also wouldn't want to know because then it takes all the fun out of it.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, okay, what's the one that you would want to know?
When the Niners are going to win a ring.
Mine was a little more philosophical. Like, when am I going to die?
Oh, well, I'd say it takes the fun out.
That definitely takes the fun out. One that I would want to know the outcome, man, I don't know. I want to know. There's so many things I want to know. I want to know if humanity ever gets off the planet. I want to know if my daughter ever gets married and have kids. Hopefully I'll be alive for that, honestly. But, want her life to turn out well. There's a lot of things. But I'm with you. I think it would take the fun out if we knew when the 49ers were going to have a ring. I'll take the baseball route. When are the Padres going to win a World Series? Because they've never done it, and I'd love to see it. I just want to know that it's coming eventually.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you kind of gave a good one there, so I'll follow your steps. When will I become a dad? Like, I'm 29. I'll be 30 in May. No kids.
Hell yeah.
When will I become a dad? That would be a cool thing to know, because that doesn't take too much of a surprise off of you. Those are things you can plan for. So we'll see. It'll be crazy. Also, another one would be when will the cure for cancer be found? Like stuff like that,
all that philosophical really cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
All that philosophical stuff is fun.
So, guys, comment your answers in the chat. We like to end these with a little chat pack, little personal questions, give you a little preview of who we are outside of football, because we are people in the end. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this show. Thank you, everybody, for rocking with us this Saturday night. Shout out to Mike. Couldn't make it tonight. Hope you're doing well, Mike. We'll be live again. Are we going tomorrow after the game? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we'll be here around 7-ish.
Yeah, Joey. When will the Giants be confident again? Error.
Hey man, you got Jung-Hoo Lee, and he's at a Warriors game tonight.
Yeah. I don't know much about baseball, but all I know is the Lincecum run was electric. I followed baseball a little bit then, when I was in high school. My English teacher let us watch the World Series when it was on during the day, or the playoffs. I don't know what it was. World Series probably at night. So, yeah. All right, guys, that'll do it for this show. Hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you for the super chats if you sent one. Follow us on X. Our handles are on the screen, so you never miss a thing. Follow the podcast at RGS Pod. With that all out of the way, Matt, take us out.
Absolutely. The 49ers have an opportunity to kill their fourth bird in a row. It's the 4 out of 5 birdie gauntlet, and it couldn't come at a better time for the 49ers to take a road game. They could win their division. It's a lot that goes with it, but I think they're going to be amped up for this game. They just have to avoid the trap. What isn't a trap is everyone who joined us here tonight. It was a great time. We're glad you joined us. So for Zach and myself, thank you as always for joining us. We love having you here. And until next time, go Niners.